Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Victory is won.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Hi, I'm Omar Neal, and I'm one of the hosts of this wonderful show called The Cutting Edge. As this day, we salute Black History Month. It is such a pleasure to bring this wonderful program to you. This program is being brought to you in part by the University of Maryland School of Public Health. And of course, we are so excited to have a wonderful cast of guests today to really delve into a very, very important subject. You can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, and make sure that you like and share with all of these formats so that we can get as many people as we can to join us in this wonderful expression. Well, I'm Omar Neal, and I'm going to be one of your hosts. And of course, we got Dr. T, who will be hanging out with us, who is the co-host as well. But we got to really lay out our guest today. I'm so excited to have a person to whom I've known for many, many years. I call him my mentor because he is Dr. Edward Wheeler. And we also have Reverend Dr. Stephen Bland, as well as Reverend Dr. Lauren Jackson. Dr. Wheeler is the former dean of the chapel at Tuskegee University. It's where I first met him. He has, you can read his bio there, but Dr. Wheeler has touched me in such a way that I will never be the same. He is authentic. He is real. He's truthful to himself. He is forward thinking. He's my dear friend. Let's bring up Dr. T now and me so that we can get this going. Dr. T, I'm telling you, I'm excited. Now, you have to know when I say I'm excited about something, I'm really excited about it, right? You know.
Jumping through the screen, Omar.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it's wonderful to be here with you this evening. And what a lineup we have. We have created a village square, where you can come and have the conversations. You see the barber poles behind me. That's our metaphor for authentic conversations. Nothing's off limits. And we can agree and we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. And at a time like this in the pandemic, as the surge is going down and everyone's talking about, let's just get back to normal, the message from the barbershops is that everybody don't want to get back to normal because for far too many Black and brown people, Normal was living sicker and dying younger.
Right.
They want to take charge of their own health, and this is an opportunity to do that.
You know, they say that disequilibrium allows for growth. And sometimes when you are going through these moments of being in a quandary, that's the time that you can do an assessment and move in a more positive direction. So we look at it from this vantage point, Dr. T. There's a blessing and a lesson in everything.
Well,
and so that's how we're going to look at it.
I'm sitting over here in the academia world of science, and we know that that is important, but not enough. And the lineup we have today of our spiritual leaders help round out what needs to happen. You know, nature has a way of telling us something's wrong. And that's what we're faced with right now. We're not in control of all these things, but we can manage it.
Right. You know, one of the things that we are also talking about is this notion of knowing thine own self. And it's important to know yourself, know who you are, because if you don't know where you came from, you certainly can't know where you are, and you have no idea where you're going. So Black History Month, and it's important to understand that when Dr. Carter G. Woodson first created this notion of Black History Week, it was to find and to celebrate what he had discovered the previous 51 weeks in the year, not to discover yourself in that week.
That's right.
And so what they did, they extended it to a month, which is the shortest month of the year, and say, we're going to give you just that time to discover yourself. That's not what it's about. Every day should be a day of discovery of who you are. And so that's what we're talking about today. I'm so excited to bring forth my dear friends. Let's start out with Dr. Edward Wheeler. Dr. Wheeler is my dear friend. Doc, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing even better now that I'm on the show with you, man. It's been a while.
It's been a month of Sundays, hasn't it?
Thank you for being here, Dr. Wheeler. You know, Omar likes to say you need to make your friends before you need them. I hear you two go back 30 plus years.
We go back a while. But you need to know that if my good friend Omar has signed off on you, Dr. T, I'm going to start including you in my list of friends too.
Absolutely.
I like that. Trustworthiness
good
matters.
Good people around them.
Absolutely.
There you go.
You know, one of the things that we wanted to do, Dr. Wheeler, because I know that there's so much that we can talk about you, but I like sometimes for people to introduce themselves in terms of how they see themselves. So for just a short period of time, tell the listening audience and viewing audience, who's Dr. Edward Wheeler?
Well, I will do that as short as I can. First of all, I'm a Black Baptist preacher. I was born to two wonderful parents. They did not have a lot of formal education. My mother was a high school graduate and my dad was a fourth grade graduate. But I tell people, whatever good you see in me, you see a reflection of Joseph and Fannie Wheeler. Anything bad, I picked up on my own. I've been blessed to be in ministry for 60 years. I've been able to go and get my undergraduate degree from Morehouse, my graduate theological degree from Colgate Rochester Divinity School, and a PhD in historical theology from Emory University. But all that would never matter if I had not found in my senior year at Morehouse a young lady named Mary Susan Parker Wheeler that was crazy enough to say yes when I asked her to marry me in 1969. We've been married 52 years. I've got 3 beautiful daughters, 3 grandchildren, and 2 great grandsons.
All right. All right.
I've been blessed to be president of 2 graduate theological schools. I've been a pastor of 2 churches, and I've also been the dean of the chapel at Tuskegee University, where I met Omar Neal.
Absolutely.
So Ed Wheeler is a blessed man.
Thank you.
And the blessing includes the 2 people you're going to introduce shortly, who are my close friends and brothers.
Absolutely. Let's bring up Reverend Dr. Steve Bland. He's in the Motor City. They call it Detroit, Michigan. Dr. Bland, how are you doing today, my friend?
Well, as I say all the time, I'm in good shape for the shape of me.
I like that one. I'm gonna use that.
Absolutely. We're going to use that one. Man, let me first of all tell you how elated we are to have you join us today. When Dr. Wheeler told me that he wanted to have a couple of his good buddies to come and join him, I was elated because I know if you hanging out with him, that we're going to have a wonderful time today. So what I want to do is just take y'all into y'all private conversations and then just make it public.
I don't know how much of that you can handle.
That's what we can handle it. Do know this. We can handle it. We can handle it. I want it to be like you all do when nobody is watching. That's what I want. That's what I want today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Bland.
Well, other than being happy to say that I'm a child of the Most High and a pastor, preacher, and been in ministry not as long as my dear friend, Dr. Edward Wheeler, my elder brother, but I've 38 years of ministry. And of those 38 years of ministry, 37 of them, Ed Wheeler has been my friend. So he's literally walked with me and guided, footsteps in my walk with God that has been a treasure and something I'll always have as the height of my work. Not many people you can really call true friends, and Ed Wheeler is clearly one of them. I thank God for my sainted pastor, Dr. Mac Charles Jones, who introduced us. And I never will forget the first time we met, and we've been connected ever since. God called Mac home in 1996, and Ed and I have filled in the gaps. So we've had many walks and many years, many tears, many laughs, and in between, there's a whole lot of other minis in there. But we're grateful to God for every bit of it. I am the son of Reverend Steve and Marguerite Bland, who both served the Lord's Church in ministry until the time of their demise. My father passed in 1987, my mother in 1990, and both taught me to love the Lord. And similar to Ed Wheeler, they taught me the right way to do it. So anything else you see are things that Larry Jackson taught me.
That's barbershop talk.
I'm just glad they're not here to witness where I made a left turn. So, but grateful I've had the ability in my undergraduate degree in accounting, Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, and then after that, for call to ministry, I received a master's degree both from Central Baptist Theological Seminary in Kansas City, where I served there for some 6-7 years as an assistant to Mac Jones. And then I completed the work at Virginia Union, postmaster's work there, where Dr. Miles Jones, Dr. John Ken, and many others were mentors of mine. I also have a D-Man from that same August HBCU school there, and did my work in leadership development, and received my doctorate in 2005 now. So it's been about 17 years, I guess, since that completion. I am pastor of the Liberty Temple Baptist Church here in the great city of Detroit, the D. Been here 18 years, pastored 15 years in Illinois at the Pilgrim Baptist Church there. So I had a wonderful, stellar career in ministry. I love the Lord. I'm currently serving as the senior leader, state president of the Michigan Progressive Baptist State Convention, moderator of the Michigan District Baptist Association, and citywide president of the Detroit Baptist Pastors Council of Detroit and vicinity, comprised of about 362 pastors. So just doing a little bit over here, trying to make it happen, trying to make Ed Wheeler proud.
Your modesty is not necessary, brother. You on the ball, man. We love you, man. Thank you so much for joining with us.
Sue Wheeler wouldn't have it no other way. I can't
absolutely.
Unless I'm doing something, I can't come by a house.
That's right. Let's bring up Dr. Laren Jackson. Dr. Jackson, they say that all of the bad things they got from you. Now I'm not gonna believe what Dr. Bland said. So tell us, one is, let me thank you for agreeing to join us, man. We are so happy and pleased that the family has gathered. And that's exactly how we want you to see yourself here. You are an integral part of this family. So first of all, thank you for being here and agreeing to join with us. But tell us a little bit about yourself. They can see and read about it, but I want you to tell them from your perspective about yourself.
I'm a product of growing up in the inner city of St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
In very challenging times. My family was deeply involved in social action back in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s in terms of fighting for rights for African American people living in the city of St. Louis. As a young person, I got in a lot of trouble, not because my parents taught me that way. I just gravitated towards the streets, and I would spend some time in my teen years being incarcerated for my behavior. But it was that same kind of aggressive attitude that kept me going and fighting for civil rights. My family was deeply involved in that. I was blessed with athletic talent. Back in the late 60s, I was ranked as one of the top offensive football players in the nation. Would go on to the University of Missouri, would be one of the leaders, founding leaders of the Legion of Black Collegians at the University of Missouri when we were challenging racism openly in the late 60s. Who was two-time All-American at Mizzou, graduated with a degree in accounting, played for 8 years in the NFL as an offensive guard.
All right.
For Denver Broncos, Atlanta Falcons, and I was the first African-American offensive lineman for the Atlanta Falcons in 1975. Was traded to Green Bay and refused to honor the trade because I played in Green Bay and the cold was just too bitter for me. At that time, I was in the top 1% of offensive linemen in the NFL, making $76,000. Now, you got to put that in context, right? of 1976, right? So,
7.6 million today.
Yes. So, and I was very active in fighting for players' rights in the NFL. That's one of the reasons I would be getting traded. People would deem that I think I'd be better off somewhere else because I was never docile when it came to confronting injustice. I entered the ministry in 1978, graduated with my master's, my undergraduate degree was from Mizzou in accounting. My master's is from Emory University, and my doctorate is from United in Dayton, Ohio. Still very active in community activities, teaching, trying to help people redefine their direction where needed. Thankful that the Lord showed grace and mercy upon me to get me thus far along the way. And Steve and Ed, my brothers in Christ, and Ed and I walked through some very difficult seasons over the journey, but we're still here and we thank God for it. It's good to be with you tonight.
Thank you. You know, I wanted to start out by giving you an opportunity to share your story, because it is with that spirit that we come today, the need to know thine own self, right? This desire to discover not just who you are now, but where did you come from and who preceded you. Dr. Wheeler, I want you to start out because you invoked your parents and you gave homage to them. You gave them the honor to say that anything that's good, that it was about what they did, but all of this bad stuff I picked up on my own. Let me ask you this: how important is it to know our history? I want you to dig down in your heart and to explain the importance of knowing history.
Well, thank you, Omar. I was trained as a church historian. And history helps you understand where you come from and helps you begin to chart a path to where you ought to go. A lesson in rowing. I'm not a good swimmer, so I'm always careful when I'm around the water. But I was taught if you're going to row a boat, you line up where you're coming from. You look at where you're going, but you keep your eyes on the path even as you're rowing toward where you're going. Because if you line it up right, looking back keeps you going in the right direction when you're rowing. If we know who we are and have wrestled with where we've come from, you know the stories. You know the stories of that mom and daddy and grandparents and great grandparents and aunts and uncles have gone through to get you to where you are now. One of the problems in America is we've got this concept called rugged individualism, and we somehow have adopted this idea that I'm who I am because I made myself. No, I don't care. It's impossible. I'm not a physics major and didn't stay in physics too long, but it is literally impossible for somebody to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. You have to have something outside of yourself to give leverage so that you can pull yourself out. Knowing who you are helps give you the leverage you need to envision new possibilities. Being able to understand where you've come from teaches you the stories of how others before you overcame. And it gives you a sense of possibility about what you can become, even in the worst situations. I've said this to my children from time to time. I don't care how much hell you're going through right now. The hell you've gone through is not the kind of hell that my great grandparents went through as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
If they could survive that, don't tell me what you can't overcome. I even go back further. I said, I don't know what West African country I came from or where my roots are. But I know when I went to Ghana and came out of the gate of no return and stood there looking at the chalky ocean on a slate gray day, when every now and then a drop would fall from the sky that felt like a teardrop falling. It wasn't raining. It was just a heavy teardrop. I looked out and I wondered who was the first one to walk across the sand and get in the boat that took them to a ship, that took them to a foreign land they knew nothing of. How many tides have rolled in since the first person was stolen from Africa? How many footsteps? And in standing there, I began to feel that I was more than what I was told I was by this culture. I began to feel the power of centuries of African religion and African culture and African heritage and African roots. And I came back to America, proud to be an American, yes, but proud of the fact that I was not defined by the limits of this nation. I was defined by the Blackness that I had encountered in a country where Black was beautiful. It was in the majority, and anything that didn't look like me looked strange.
You know, I want to bring Dr. Bland on. Dr. Wheeler, you're so poetic, man, that you just have a way of just putting it where the cows can get it.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Bland, you know, we're in this space, and I know that you're watching where people are saying that we don't want to have uncomfortable conversations about history. And I only imagine how that sounds to a person who teaches the Bible, which is a historical account. And I'm sure that there are some things that happened in the Bible that were not always good. There were even some people who we tout and we honor that didn't always do good, but we learn from them. Even in their mistakes, we learn from that, right? I want to know the importance of getting into those uncomfortable spaces so that we can find our rightful places.
Well, first thing I would say to that is I'm glad that the Hebrew writer and the describers of biblical texts did not take struggle out of the biblical story. Otherwise, we wouldn't have much to preach. What makes scripture the capacity to do what it does is the very fact that it does make you uncomfortable. It does put you at a point of challenge. It does allow you to embrace yourself. And for people to move to this issue of seeking comfort and convenience puts us right opposed to what Martin King said, as any man who tries to live a life based on comfort and convenience and not, controversy, and challenge really is not contributing much to life. I think life's change comes on the very edge and cutting edge of offense. And I think that's what's missing in life today. And people are trying to avoid that which ultimately brings change. Change comes on the very cutting edge of challenge and controversy. And, the hypocrisy is that we're living in an age where people don't want to hear truth, because we're in an age of relativism where truth is relative based on to what I want to accept. So people have already come to their preconceived conclusions, and they only want to hear and go to places that's going to reaffirm what they already know. So, we're challenged with arrogance and ignorance. And when you put them both together, it's a Molotov cocktail. Everything we have that has been to our destruction has come because of that. And the challenge with arrogance, particularly not for the oppressors or people who think they are greater, is when we ourselves get to a place where we don't think our story needs to be told, or that we've graduated to a place where we've gotten to a post-racial mentality.
Lord,
I think anybody who has lived in the last 4 years after the 8 years of Obama came to understand what post-racial myths meant. And so, the actual issue is that we have come to a place where we realize we have not gone very far, past what our ancestors dealt with. I mean, people, for instance, talk about January 6th, but they forget January 6th happened after January 5th. And January 5th was the day that we actually moved and gave Georgia a chance under a spotlight to be able to vote, on whether they wanted to deal with the candidates that were presented at that time. And this is, again, the same state that King said was sweltering with the oppressions, all the other vestiges of racism, et cetera. But when given an opportunity, you had a Black Baptist preacher from the very pulpit that Martin King spoke from, that passes that, and a Jewish individual, who basically came and was challenging someone who was an economic, entrepreneur, Dollar General, leader, manager, et cetera, and given the opportunity to vote, people voted in something that looked, again, like the very thing that we had been fighting for. And so we rejoiced when you could see a Black Baptist preacher, a Jewish American president, actually ascend to the Senate. And the next day, as a matter of autocorrection, you began to see the nation move to a point of readjustment, realignment, because ultimately it suggests that the controversy that they're trying to avoid is they're not ready to face the fact that they're still as racist, if not more now, as they were at the time they wrote the founding documents when we were 3/5 of a human.
no.
They're still to a point where we forget that before there was a 1776 Constitution, we were here 1619, 150 years dealing with these levels of atrocities that they don't want their children to know and remember. And the point that we actually have to remember is, as a people, people will only do to you what you let them do to you. If you have no insult level, you have no dignity level. The moment Whoopi Goldberg says something about Jewish history and deal with that, all of a sudden you see not only the rising up, but even also they want to, move her in suspension. They want to have a public apology. They want to have all things done when they move. And she actually was mentioning the book Mouse that she was dealing with about Jewish history when she came to deal with it. But the very point that she was saying was that they were trying to take that off the 8th grade reading list in Tennessee. And by even daring to address its removal and actually misspeaking on something you call a view, she was just basically giving a view. You saw how quick the JDL began to speak to that issue. Our challenge is, as a people, as Black folk, we treat our history like it's Groundhog Day. February 1st or 2nd, that mean we just show up and put our heads up above the ground once a year. No, it's our anniversary date, but we actually need to be talking about it, as you said, all year long. And right. I'm challenged because anybody who does not leave themselves to self-critique, the ability to look toward that, is going to be victimized by that arrogance and that ignorance. And I'm afraid our children are abandoning the church and our regular conversations because Generation Z, they know better, but they just do not want to be attached to anybody who doesn't want to cut it straight. And that's why I like this kind of platform, because in the barbershop, you can cut it straight.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Dr.
Jackson,
Yes,
you mentioned that you were always fighting for justice. It's just something about you.
Long time.
When you look at what Dr. Wheeler and Dr. Bland has talked about in terms of, saying that the conditions that we're in today are as bad, and in some ways, in terms of the civil rights movement, we're doing the same thing. It's almost like Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Have you ever thought about when will this ever end, or why do we continue to have these same struggles over and over again? Have you ever just assessed why do we constantly come back to this space?
Yes, I have. And I think I hope that I made it clear that I have been constantly in the fight, especially from my teenage years on. I think one of the best things that ever happened to me was where I had to be incarcerated, and I was guilty of what they said I'd done. They're just, the charges would have been more substantial if I hadn't missed, but I did miss. And so they deemed it good that I should be off the streets for a while. But my family, I had an uncle, his name was Martin Cole. He kept the value of life before you. And he was one of the first African-American people to work at Aeronautical Charts in St. Louis. And he took 33 boys. Now you got to hear this very clearly. One man took 33 boys, and he poured his life into us. Out of 33 boys, we would become men, all 33 of us. And only 3 of us were incarcerated. He poured his life into us. Now, he was hard on us. He didn't let you get away with sloughing and saying you couldn't do it, because he was also a civil rights leader. But as you look at this whole business of standing firm on what you understand to be right, sure, it's going to always come with a cost, but you'll pay with it the rest of your life if you do nothing. You have to be confrontational to wrong. When I understood that very clearly, especially when I got to Mizzou, I was awakened. I think I was awakened, and and having lived through so much of that bigotry and openly, and for those who know anything about St. Louis, Missouri, it was open racism. We had geographical boundaries. You couldn't live beyond certain streets. You couldn't go to certain theaters. You could only ride in the back of the bus. All of that kind of stuff. I mean, that was real. I lived through that. But once I understood what fighting for rights were, fighting for what was fair and just, I recognized that it would come with a cost. And my only question was to myself, was I willing to pay that cost? And once I said yes, then I went forward. That's part of, as I said, the founding of the Legion of Black Collegians at the University of Missouri. I was privileged too. We had a coach at Mizzou. His name was Dan Devine at the time, and he was attacking racism on the campus of Mizzou. But that experience brought me together at another level in terms of not just talking about faith, but daring to live into faith and knowing what the cost will be. And that has carried me even until this day. I was the youngest player representative in the entire NFL in 1972, the youngest. But some people alleged, Mr. Neal, that I was extremely radical. I don't know that I was extremely radical as I was about demanding how I should be respected.
Well,
Colin
go ahead.
Kaepernick before Colin Kaepernick ever came with
Yeah. I want you all to come into this space, because what we are finding is that there are a lot of people who are afraid, and they fear that they will be hurt if they speak up, and there are people who have become very transactional. So it's just me, my foe, and no more, right? And so they're not concerned about the greater good, right? And so Dr. Wheeler and Dr. Bland, help me to understand how you can move beyond this notion of just self and selfishness to selflessness, right? Where you can think about the greater good. That's what, when we're talking about public health, we're not talking about your personal health. We're talking about all of our health.
That's right.
Right. The missing word there is community.
The common good.
Help me out with that. And I want all of you. Now we're in the barbershop now. I let y'all do your little monologue. So now we got that going. Now, because I ain't gonna let y'all preach on me all day. I'm just letting y'all know y'all gonna talk to me like I'm in the barbershop, like I'm one of the brothers. Bring me in the house now. Yeah. All right.
I was just about to say that the main thing is we all operated from the base of community. I am because we are. I mean, everything is seen through the lens of us and community, and the rugged individualism that has crept into our community is what has moved us away from those premises. So, most people are thinking about I, me, and mine, secure in the bag. The whole issue of getting a vaccine is based on what, my body, they're not thinking about how those choices impact the whole. The reason why we gained that is because at the center and core of our life was faith and family, and church. So, you met a Black person, in any city you go to, first thing I'm gonna ask is who your people.
Who your people? That's it. That's it.
But once you find out who your people, what church you go to, everything else starts connecting, because you moved in community, you moved in village. That no longer is the idiom. So I think it starts and ends. By the way, Larry, the Detroit Lions is still waiting on you to come back.
Okay. All right. I'll get them before next season starts.
Hey, Steve, though. But once again, what you're talking about is an awareness of our interdependence. Right. I mean, now, all three of us grew up in working class communities.
Absolutely.
And everybody knew your mama, everybody knew your daddy.
So there's the
accountability. There were always folk who would correct you when you were going wrong, and you prayed that nobody called home and told them what you had got caught doing. I'd gladly take a whipping from my aunt or the next door neighbor. Just don't tell my mom and daddy, please, because there was a mutual respect. And Steve and Larry, there were values, even when the grown folk, before my daddy got saved and joined the church, I never saw my daddy drunk, but my daddy would drink his Four Roses, and he and my uncles would sit up there and tell stories about their baseball days. And there was this sense of community and a sense of inclusiveness and inclusion. My mama could go in any neighbor and get whatever she needed to finish up her meal if she didn't have milk or didn't have eggs, and anybody in the neighborhood could come to our house. When mama was having dinner, she didn't send the kids in the neighborhood home.
Right.
If you were at the house the time when dinner was served, you ate dinner in my house. That's just the way it
If I didn't
was.
have enough for somebody else, I didn't have enough for myself.
That's right.
Wow.
And my mama used to have a saying. She said, "I'll just add another rock to the soup."
How did we get away from that? I mean, it's like you've hit on the salient point that and you said it, Dr. Bland, a lot. It's community, which is two words: common unity, right? Right. And so we obviously got to get back to that space. We have lost each other, and I want Meg, if we can do something, Meg. Last week we didn't get it done, but I want Meg to run the numbers in terms of the number of people that we've lost. Now, you all have done the eulogies for many of these people.
Lord have mercy.
But Meg, run the numbers for us. This is Meg Jordan.
This is our public health minute. Go ahead, Meg.
Hi, everybody. So in the past 2 weeks, these are the numbers for the past 2 weeks because we missed you last week. So in the past 2 weeks, 8.6 million people have gotten COVID in America, and 41,000 people have died of COVID-19. In the past 2 weeks, 2.6 million Americans have become fully vaccinated that weren't before, and 6.9 million people have gotten their boosters. And if you haven't gotten your booster, I encourage you to do so. So we are up to—
Go on and run those. Continue, Meg.
Okay. So in total, in the past 2 years, 75.6 million cases of COVID. That's not necessarily people, because people can get COVID over and over and over again. But we know that 893,000 people have died in the US. And only 221 million Americans are fully vaccinated, which is about 2/3. And we know that 88 million have gotten boosters, which is significantly lower than that 221 million.
Thanks, Meg. Thank you so much.
Omar, there's a lot of suffering out there. At a certain point, when the vaccines became available, all infections and deaths after that were totally preventable. As I heard you tell your story, you also described suffering. And I remember something Dr. King said: unearned suffering is redemptive. Does that have meaning in this period we're in right now, in this pandemic?
One of the things that as we look back historically, and even in our own lives, when I speak of historically, there were folks in our community who weren't necessarily our parents,
Right.
but they took responsibility for you.
Mhm.
They told you what to do that was right. And you, even as teenagers, as you grew up, you kind of helped the younger folks behind you.
Mhm.
And you began to pour, quote unquote, some life into them to help them to make choices that are wise and better and sometimes good. We as a community, we as Black folks and have our own community, we've lost a lot of that. We've lost the fact that we are not just called to live together, we're called to care about people across all racial lines, but we have to take that seriously. I've done a lot of work around the country with inner city situations. That's my doctoral focus, curriculum development for African American church and community. And I've been privileged to walk in some of the roughest gangs. Jumped in the middle of a gang fight in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, New York. And do you know, after I snatched them apart, now I was the only adult on the block, and I snatched them apart and stood right between them and said, "It's over." And they started looking. I said, "It's over." And after that day, some of them would come back to the church. I was on Gardner Taylor's staff at Concord at one point in Bed-Stuy. And they came back to the church and they said, "Reverend Jackson, can we talk?" I said, "Yeah, we can talk." And we did. Now, I don't say that my words changed their lives entirely, but at least they knew it was somebody who cared about them and wouldn't let them kill each other. Part of what's happening in our community is we don't have enough folks who know the way, who dare to tell people who don't know the way the right way. Right. And it's going to come at a cost. I mean, you may jump into a gang fight and you may get hurt or killed. But at some point, you got to care enough to take a risk.
Well, let me say this. Thank God for you and for your courage to do that. And courage don't mean that you're unafraid. Courage means that you act appropriately in the face of fear. And so thank you for your courage. I want to take you to church because as you know, with the pandemic.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Bland.
Because it was spurred on by what Lauren said about this extended village piece, which is so important because our family has never been necessarily in our community, a two-parent, white house picket fence and a dog type, not that, that's not our ultimate reality.
And if you had a dog, he wasn't in the house.
They didn't have no house dog during that time.
That dog lived like a dog.
Unless that's what mama was calling daddy at that moment. But, the real issue is we've always had the extended family and the village. We always had the safety net that somebody, could not only help you, catch you, but you respected them so that you weren't errant or ignorant for too long. Somebody was going to catch you. I mean, let's take the last thing you just put up about the vaccination, thing of that nature. Now, we do know, crazy, ignorant, failed leadership. Anytime you got a president that talks about taking some of the stuff he was going to take to deal with all that kind of stuff, we already know what that looks like. And we also know that virus.
You mean I can't get no Clorox, man? What's wrong with you?
Now,
I went out and bought my Clorox.
I was trying not to put too much time into giving press to that ignorance, but anyway.
Go ahead.
But given the failed leadership, not telling people the fact of its spread, we do know that's how it began. But there was a time in our community that we could have caught those kinds of errors that happen at a national, international level and pandemic, and at least knew what to do to guard ourselves, to deal with that. But some of the stuff that you deal with is ignorance. We just can't blame on Trumpers or anti-vaxxers that come from that area, because we got some of our own people who don't listen or will not heed village mentality, or been able to help us to survive that Holocaust, because some of those numbers don't have to be ours. Right. Ed taught him Tuskegee. He was, Dean of Chapel, Tuskegee, thing of that nature, and most of us know that when medicine and politics get together, they make strange babies in Black and brown communities. But we still listen to people who talk about, the Tuskegee experiment as a reason for not taking it. They're not really understanding the nature of what the Tuskegee experiment really was.
That's right.
I mean, that was not a case of people trying to give you vaccination. They wouldn't give you the vaccine.
They wouldn't give. That's it. That's it.
Right.
But you could have cleared that ignorance up in our community quickly with folk, and then they tell you, now get on down there and take that shot. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, the polio issue, we've been taking vaccines all our life, in dealing with things. But the point is, even if it was something that people weren't quite sure of, we had the ability to pray over stuff. We had the ability to have faith in God with stuff. We had the ability.
Amen.
I mean, we could take stuff out the earth before we could get to emergency rooms, other kind of stuff. You know, we had, castor oil, liver oil, 3 6s, whatever it was they gave us. We did it and lived.
But
That was our
Steve,
vaccine because they wouldn't give us access to that stuff. So where do we get now? All these folk who have access to the healthcare, and then we get these excuses. It's the lack of community and trust that has been broken down between our generations, and that's what got to be fixed. Because
and Steve, some of this is a result too of our separating ourselves from our own communities. I remember growing up seeing very few doctors until I moved to Atlanta that looked like me. When I moved to Atlanta, I mean, that was like, you could see black doctors, black dentists, black nurses. I mean,
they went to our
black
church.
folk were in leadership roles.
We shopped in the same stores. I mean,
Yeah, we stopped the same store, went to the same church.
Yes.
We were together. One of the things that has happened as a percentage of us have begun to blossom and move into the broader culture, we have moved not only into the culture, we've moved away from our own culture. And we've lost some voices in our community that are important for us to be able to hear. You just said it. In what happened in Tuskegee, nobody gave those black men syphilis. They had it already. The sin was they used them in an experiment, giving only some the vaccine and others placebo. And those that did not get it died. Now, and what I can't understand for the life of me is now all of a sudden we got to know everything that's in everything we put in our, you don't even know what's in, you don't know what's in a McDonald's hamburger. and I hate to say this for some of my brothers that might enjoy a hit every now and then. You don't know what's in the marijuana you smoking, and you ain't started checking that out.
Right.
Hey,
No,
I got one better for you. I talked to somebody who I actually helped counsel off drugs, and dealing with that kind of thing. And he was telling me he didn't want to take the vaccine because he wanted to be careful about what he put in his body. I said, Negro, please. All the stuff they put in your body that we've been talking to you about for 15 years. Now you want to be talking about what you're careful of? You ought to thank God that stuff didn't kill you. You know it wasn't no good. But I'm just saying, that's the kind of stuff you deal with.
Omar, I'm listening to these brothers and I'm wondering to what extent these polls behind me, even though you moved away from the hood, you come back to the neighborhood for your haircut. Can the barbershops, as well as the churches, be a place where we bring that village back together, where we literally have that kind of straight talk like you're talking right now, and people will listen?
Yeah.
What we're learning right now is that the phones are ringing off the hook because folks want to come back to the barbershop to get their vaccines. And we got some warriors out here you're going to meet who've made that transition.
Yeah, well, I have for the last 5 years had a men's group that meets in the barbershop.
Okay.
Right. And the purpose is for us to look at the values by which we're operating and to move beyond the barbershop and go into the community, and where you see young people who may be going in the wrong direction, try to befriend them, talk to them, help them to turn around. And I know it works because you're looking at somebody who had just one person to speak into my life that turned me around.
Yeah, let's bring up Aaron Perry. I want to go in the barbershops, and we're going to go into Katrina. I want you to be on standby. I'm bringing you. I'm going into the hair salons. Hey, Aaron, how you doing, man?
Oh, I am good. I'm definitely enjoying the panelists. Thank you, gentlemen. I so appreciate you, and you're just hitting on all cylinders. You got me reflecting and thinking, and I'm a child of the civil rights activists, and we don't take that for granted. I remember at the age of 5, my mom was holding me in her arms and she kept saying, "Son, look at what this country has come to." I just wanted to get out of her arms and run down on the street and play with the army men. It's a bunch of army men running in the streets. I remember they were burning up the houses, the trees were on fire. But I'll never forget these 3 brothers who were riding down the street on a bicycle, and they had fur coats draped over their back. They had just looted the fur store. Martin Luther King had just been assassinated. And we burned our community down, and I watched it. But I just wanted to go down on the street and play with the army man because it's the National Guards running through the street. But I also wanted to pivot back to you guys are talking about just the barbershop. We have a men's health group. We call it a Christian men's health group, and we meet every Wednesday night. But just last night, we had a brother that came in. He's happily married, but he has a new assistant that just came to his facility, and he brought it to the group because he said, "Man, I'm feeling tempted by her. She's tempting me." And he said, "Brothers, I need y'all help." And so we talked about it and we prayed about it and we said, "Man, brother, the grass is not greener on the other side."
Well,
But he loves his family.
well,
But this new assistant was really pushing him to, kind of be unfaithful. But after last night, he said that he was going to, kind of set some firm boundaries with her. But all of this comes out of just listening to you brothers talking about what the barbershop is today. We actually get stuff accomplished now.
Right. Tell them what you're doing. We're so excited about your new venture. I want you to tell the brothers now, Aaron is part of the family, brothers. So I want you all to know that. Tell them what you're doing, Aaron.
Yeah, so we in 2 weeks we're opening up. It's called the Perry Family Free Clinic. It's right next door to the barbershop, and we're gonna knock a big old hole in the wall, and then now the barbershop will be connected to the Perry Family Free Clinic. But this is for uninsured and underinsured Black men. We've identified 700 in our community, and thank you. These are brothers that the community has just given up on. These are the men that have come in, and we periodically pay for their haircuts, and they come in and we do blood pressure screenings on them. We give them flu shots. We try to give them, basically what we're doing is we're putting a patch on the problem.
Aaron, what area is that in? What area is that in?
Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that they typically say to us, "So you want me to voluntarily go to the doctor and get a $500 bill that I can't pay, and then run the risk of getting even more collection agencies coming after me? I'll take my risk." Well, now we have a solution for that. We have a clinic that's going to provide them. This will be their medical home. So we're really excited about that.
I love that.
man.
I pastored not too far from there in Rockford, Illinois.
Yes.
So, but I love that approach. One of the things we're working on doing now is doing voter registration at the barbershop, setting up vaccination clinics, through the barbershop, beauty shop, because, we're going to get our hair done, even
We're going to get our hair did.
I don't know where he's from. Where he from? Hey, Dr. Wheeler, where he from? Talking about get our hair done.
We're going to get our hair did, man.
Well, and we get it polished there too, Omar. So,
Reverend Bland.
But so the conversation, when people get convinced or have that persuasion, we need to have the antidote, the answer right there.
Yeah.
So if we can talk a brother into or sister into getting registered to vote or to get the vaccination or whatever it is, we've got to take the church to the place, because it used to be that the physical building was the place we did that. But I think the pandemic, taught us that the building may have been the impediment.
It's important to read.
What I want to do, what I want to do is bring Katrina Randolph up too, because we not only do we go into the barbershops, but we also go into the beauty salons. And Dr. T called her the short hair queen. So I'm not, that's his name for her. I haven't grown up enough to be able to say that to Miss Randolph.
I've
hey,
seen her
Katrina
in
Randolph, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. This is such an amazing conversation. And what stuck to me the most was the village. You know, they said it takes a village, and I believe so. And I've always wanted my salon to be, that safe haven for especially young women who don't have that correct guidance, to be there to support them and keep them on the right pathway. So this conversation is definitely amazing. I mean, going back, we have to sometimes go back to that root. It takes a village to raise a child. And they just kept on saying that. And that stuck with me the most because it's so important. It's a lot of people out here that doesn't have that right guidance. So that's when the salons and the barbershops come into play, because we want to make our space a safe haven for people to come to have that outlet. Just like the conversation, the gentleman was able to come to the barbershop and talk about him lusting after another woman. That is our job in the community, to be able to support people just like that, to be able to keep them encouraged and be that safe haven for that space for them to be able to open up, because a lot of times you don't have that.
Right.
Now,
So
Katrina, tell them where you are and the name of your shop.
we're in Capitol Heights. The name of our salon is Trey Shades Hair Studio.
So they're inside the Capitol Beltway in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And Katrina had one of the very first COVID vaccine clinics ever in a beauty salon in the state of Maryland. And that helped launch this whole campaign.
Absolutely.
That's right.
She was right there in the impetus of this whole venture, man. And we love her so much. She's had a lot of vaccine clinics there. She's convinced so many of her clients to get vaccinated. She made sure that everybody that worked there was vaccinated. She created a standard for her environment, that people would be safe.
Yes, sir.
And so we're so happy to do that. Let me bring, fellas, we're gonna continue talking, but I want to introduce y'all to the family. Let me bring in Dr. Ritter. Is our standard. I normally would have Dr. Ritter come up a little earlier, but we're going to do that. Sandra Jenkins, get close, get ready. Dorothy Reynolds, I want to bring you up, so everybody get ready. Dr. Ritter, and I mean, we're taking you into a whole nother cultural experience now. What's your thoughts?
Oh my God, white woman in the barbershop here.
That works.
Talking about extending the village piece. I mean, you're really reaching out here, let me tell you. I really appreciate being here, and this conversation is like really enlightening to me. And I'm seeing the intersection of COVID with racism. And I believe that, every time we say race, we should really say the whole word racism. We have race algorithms in healthcare that we're getting rid of now. They're really racism algorithms, say the whole word. So it's like the misinformation of COVID and the misinformation of racism are intersecting. So this conversation, COVID has disenfranchised the families. Even we don't allow the families to come in for labor, and we don't allow for birth, and we don't allow them to come in for death. We've disenfranchised them. So I mean, it's all like the lines are crossing. So appreciate it.
Dr. Ritter, just tell them a little bit what your practice is.
I'm a OBGYN in Maryland, in Baltimore, Maryland. And I've been, I'm a girl from Wisconsin though. So I learned that about the lineage on the last, cutting edge here, which is really my family. Is from Wisconsin, but anyway, women's health is my passion, and I've been trying to help women for over 3 decades now, because they're the voiceless in our society, women and children.
And you have a diverse patient population?
I do. I mean, it's not as diverse as it should be. I don't have a population that necessarily feels comfortable coming into my space. So I recognize now, I mean, I have a woman today who told me about her husband who went to the barbershop and was telling somebody about, his affair. And she ended up, crying in my arms today, because she says, my culture doesn't understand. They're telling me to stay with them. And, I mean, it's like a lot of different conversations happen, even though I'm not in the inner city with my practice. But that's transportation, transportation prevents people from seeing doctors and that they want to come and see. healthcare, the insurances are preventing a lot of patients from going to where they want to be. So we have a lot of work to do to make equity, make everything available to everyone. And healthcare is suffering right now. So these conversations will help.
Let me just say, thank you for being here. She's been here from the very beginning, but also she brings the State of Maryland Medical Society to this table. And as a result, the State of Maryland Medical Society is going to have a conversation about implicit bias. This is the space where that was launched right here.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Ritter.
Good. Thanks, Dr. Ritter. Bring up Sandra Jenkins. Sandra Jenkins is another one of our hairstylists, and she does this thing up near the Philadelphia area. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you're feeling. What's your thoughts about the conversation so far? You're in the barbershop, but we're in the hair salon as
Right,
well.
that's right. You know, what really resonates with me tonight is community service. My salon from the very beginning was very deep-seated in community from day one. I was nurtured as a community service, activist when I was a child. My parents did not allow us, to just slouch around. We had to get out there and we had to sweep the streets. We had to engage in whatever it was that we felt as though that would bring the community together. So that is what I foster in my salon, in our environment, is really connecting with my clientele. And that means getting in touch with their children and bringing them to surface and getting them to feel like they are a part of this initiative. So now we're working with a youth group in Philadelphia, and they're right now addressing the issue of vaccine hesitancy. So many ways that you can really do this to really touch people in a different way, which is so very important to me. I have to say, starting off with this vaccine that we did, the very first one, that reminded me of the voter registration drive that I had in my salon. I stepped out on faith. And that's when President Obama was running. And I put my Obama signs in my window. I mean, that was courageous in Montgomery County of Philadelphia, but I did it. As Miss Dr. Bland was saying, you have to make, those types of approaches, and not fear, of these things, backlash or whatever the case may be. But if deep in your heart, you really love your community, you really are there in the support of them, I really think that is what brings us all together. I just want to add a little bit more to this. Just yesterday, I had a client that noticed the certification from the University of Maryland COVID rapid response training. She said, how can I do that? I want to be a part of that. I'm a nurse. So how can I become, more, engaged in a part of this? And I didn't want to tell her it was just for barbers and beauty salons. And, I didn't want to, I said, you know what, we're going to bring you on board some kind of way.
Absolutely. Send it our way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The fact that you had it up in your shop, again, these are ways that we learn because you're role modeling the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely are going to have to reach out to more people in more spaces, and we're going to figure out a way to do that. We got Dynamite Mike on Facebook Live, and so we want to shout out to him. He's normally with us. He's an integral part of the family. He's been with us from the beginning, and he has a wonderful voice in really helping people to understand the importance of getting vaccinated. His stories are tremendous, riveting. And so we appreciate you, Dynamite Mike. We miss you here on set, but we know that wherever you are, you're here in spirit. I'm going to go and do, let me do this. Let's do the word cloud.
There we go.
Let's do that first, because now this is what we do. Dr. Wheeler, Dr. Bland, and Dr. Jackson, every week, what we do is we put in the chat how you're feeling, right? And what we try to do is get a collective. So whatever word that best describe how you feel, Just put it in chat right now. Just right now, whatever feeling it is. And what we do is we build a word cloud. Dr. T, tell them a little bit about that.
And so just free write, the folks out there on the streaming platforms and Facebook, YouTube, you can use your chat as well. Drop the words in, one word at a time, and just keep them coming in. And
Right.
what you've heard in this conversation may influence what word you put in. And then we'll, our crew behind the scenes will share the word cloud with us, and we'll see, in a sense, have a pulse beat of this audience. And we've done that from the very beginning. And it's amazing to see what happens over time as this pandemic has shaped our attitudes and beliefs. And so I'll wait till that cloud comes up, and we'll see if it's consistent with what we've seen in the past. But there's a lot of inspiration in this space here tonight.
Yeah.
A lot of inspiration.
Thank you, Dr. T. I want to go to focus on our youth for a second. And, you know, they say that there's a detachment, and I think it may have been alluded to by Dr. Wheeler when he says that many of us who got our degrees and these good paying jobs, and we moved out of the communities and we left the community. And so therefore the people that we were assigned to, we abandoned. I want to speak from that. How do we reconnect to our children? The church, I don't know what it is now, but I do know that with COVID and a lot of other things, that there has been a shifting of how even the church is structured and how it is influenced in the community. I want to talk about how do we reconnect to our children.
Omar, if I can speak to that real quick. We had a 15-year-old kid that was really struggling, and we did an intervention with him. And he was really frustrated because he said, I keep hearing you adults, you old people, y'all keep talking about what's happening with this former president and the voting bill. He said, Dr. King's been warning y'all all my life. He's 15 years old. He said, he's been warning y'all all my life. Y'all ain't listening to him. And it was so profound to hear this young man say that. As adults, we got to pick up the pace because these kids are watching.
I'd like to speak to the young people, some of the possibilities of working with young people. First of all, we can't help them talking to them from a distance. We have to go into where they are. And we have to not minimize what they have to say to you. You know, you have an understanding and they have an understanding of what they think they understand. But it also takes some time to get to know them. I'm working with some people and talking about creating, I'm using a sports term, a vision huddle, in terms of helping young people to start to think seriously about what it is that they can do right now, and then help to move them towards resources that can help them. But there's also an accountability. The young people have to make a commitment, and that commitment has to also come from their parents. And the sad part about it is, if their parents won't help, right, then I don't try to push the child to go forward, because that child has to go home at night, and whoever guiding his life or her life has to be a part of that. So there's a number of initiatives that you can get involved in, but they've got to be structured around where kids are right now and what their needs are.
You know, what's interesting, Dr. Jackson, I certainly want Dr. Wheeler, you and Dr. Bland to join in on this, is that you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't lead where you don't go. Right. Many of their parents don't have it.
Right.
So they can't give you something that they don't have.
I understand that.
Right.
That's right.
And so we got to figure out a way to be that community, right?
Right.
That we become that safety net,
right,
for children. And Dr. Wheeler, we've talked about this before offline before.
I've got something that I instituted in my church before COVID a few years ago, and I called it GPA, and it basically meant grandparents becoming parents again. And, you know, we have to own the fact that there was a generation that we raised that says, I'm not going to do to you what my mama did to me, what my daddy did to me. You know, we gave them options when we should have been exposing them to certain realities. You know, the fruit that we want to blame came from the trees that birthed them.
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't want to take responsibility and ownership that, the scripture talk about, you know, the children need to solid grace, but the teeth being set on edge in future generations. We got to own the fact that we caused a lot of what took place. And the only way to bridge that back is through sacrifice, which means there's no easy path back.
That's right.
There's no easy bridge. That means, you know,
Right.
I love my grandchildren. I thank God for them. I wish I had them first, you know. But the challenge is, instead of me being the typical grandparent spoiled and getting what they want, I've got to do some teaching and provide some information,
Yes.
things that their parents
Yes.
can't do.
Yes.
Because in some cases, we
Yes.
didn't equip some of them to be able to do some things that we've got to step up and
Yes.
do. I'm encouraged by Brian Flores, for instance, right now, the coach who was fired by Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
You know, and he steps up now, Laren, and he says, you know, I know this may cost me my career and my ability to ever get a coaching job again. But the fact that he's suing the NFL is to open the door for future generations to not have to go through what he went through.
Exactly.
So he's willing to pay the sacrifice,
That's right.
you know, right now to do what needs to be done. And he may never reap the benefits. That's the kind of stuff that we
Yep.
got to do. We got to
Yep.
lay it on the line, because he's got the goods. He's got the answer. He's got the technique. Who else best to do it than the person who's in that spot? And again, that's the kind of way all of us in our own context have to bridge those gaps back to our children, because that's the only authentic way they're going to trust us.
Yeah.
And we got to get out of our space waiting on them to come to us. We got to get out there, like Laren said, where they are.
Well, you know, one of the things that I've seen happen in this area is, and I won't call out the fraternity, but I'm a part of a fraternity that's doing some mentoring work in one of the middle schools. And
You can call the fraternity out. It's okay.
Ain't
In this
right.
place.
No, you're going to get there and talk about
You
Catholics
gonna
now.
he gonna do something like that. I mean,
but anyway, you know, one of the things that we have deluded ourselves in believing is that young people won't listen. Young people will listen,
That's right.
but they not gonna listen to you talking smack when you don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
And they are going to ask some tough questions and
that's
expect
right.
you to give some honest answers.
That's
Now,
right.
And what I found in working with these young people is,
Yep.
man, they first of all, I hate to say this because, you know, I believe that Black women have been the bridge for us for a long time. But these young Black boys want Black male role models. And they want somebody to act like they care. Now,
Mhm.
they not gonna take, you know, some canned answers, and they're not gonna take, you know, some Pollyannish view of life, because they know better than that. But when you get real with them, they respond to that. You know, one of the things I tried, you know, not bragging or complaining, I got an earned PhD, but I didn't get that overnight. And I took some butt kickings to get there. And when I'm honest enough to tell them some of the struggles I had and some of the times when I felt like quitting, it resonates with them. I remember going back to my working class community when my next door neighbor, God rest her soul, she didn't know what a PhD was. Her and her husband sometime on Saturday night would get drunk and get to cutting the food and stuff. But they gave me an opportunity to do some banquet work and early breakfasts, making some extra money and stuff. And when I got to doing the PhD, one day I was coming home, I'd been beat, and I came by my parents' house to pick up my children and take them home. And Miss Ball said to me, Eddie, how you doing in that? What that program you in that you did? I said PhD. She said, oh yeah, got PhD. How you doing? I said, well, Miss Ball, I got to be honest with you, I'm catching hell right now. She looked at me and she said, that's all right, because we know you gonna make it. Our whole neighborhood is looking up to you to make it. And I can say this, as sure as there's a God in heaven, there was something about the way she said that to me that made me turn around and say, I got to do this.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. And I want to say this about the beauty parlor and the barbershop folks that we've had on tonight. One of the things that have impressed me was that these have become places where people are not judged.
Yes.
They can be honest about what they are saying. They can be honest about their feelings, and they don't have to wear the mask. One of the things that I am appreciating about us not being in the building, the church building anymore right now, is that people don't have to see me in my official religious role. They can talk to me as another human being, and I can speak to them in ways that they don't expect, because they don't expect me as a preacher to talk to them the way I'm talking to them.
And Ed, that speaks volumes as to who you are, though, because the average preacher and others can't talk to folk unless you're addressing them by their titles or going through all of that stuff, et cetera.
Isn't that self-aggrandizement, though, Dr.
They go in
Bland?
the barbershop and get offended if they don't, and that's the problem. We got to get more people to do just what you just said, do, and like Larry always does. That's why when he takes us left, he keeps us honest. We have to keep it at a level where it's beyond the hypocrisy. Right. Acting like we ain't never been through nothing, acting like we ain't never done, acting like we don't understand certain principles. I mean, so I just think it's that kind of transparency that you just said that causes us to be part of the problem for them. We can't blame them for our inability to have to stay in a safe space, to deal with our issues, because I think that's part of the challenge.
Let me do this. I mean, Dr. Bland, that was profound. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Let's go to the word cloud. I don't know if you know this, Dr. T, but we got 7 minutes.
I can't believe it. Now look what you brothers and the whole family out here have done. This is the cloud. As I can't believe how time has flown, but as we get into this phase of our conversation, what do you see here? What does this tell you about the moment we're in, about the community we've created in this virtual space?
Wow. That's beautiful.
Good stuff.
Do you see that? Quickly, guys, tell us what you see. The larger the word, the more people said it.
Yeah, grateful.
You see what I'm saying?
Grateful and hopeful, blessed. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? That's our collective feelings. And so when we start thinking about, we're not in this by ourselves.
Yeah.
Jesse Jackson said a lot of things, but one of the most profound things he's ever said was keep hope alive.
Yep.
Right? Because that's the only thing that moved you from your distressful place, believing that there is an opportunity to change your condition.
Yeah.
It's keeping hope alive. I know, and we saw the numbers. Meg ran the numbers, but there is hope.
Yeah.
And that's why we continue to do this each and every Thursday night.
Yeah.
We do this each and every Thursday night because we have hope.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so appreciative for that. Let me do a couple of more things. Thank you all so much. Let me bring on. I got some more people that if I don't bring them on, my staff gonna mess with me. Let me do a couple of things. Bring Dorothy Reynolds up, and bring Andre Russell up. Please bring Andre Russell.
And brothers and sisters,
if you don't bring anybody else up, bring Stacy Ingram Ruffin up. I mean, just please bring them up, because man, I'm telling you, all don't know what I go through if I don't take care of Andre. I don't know what you've done.
And be sure to say the city that you're in, so the audience knows. We're all from all over the country here.
Yeah, I'm thankful to be here with this group of you guys from every place, from all around America. Actually, I'm Andre from Atlanta, Georgia.
All right.
And you guys talked about. I'm going to make this short. You guys talked about a couple of things that came up as far as mentoring goes. I've had my shops for several years, quite a few years.
Tell them where your shops are.
A barbershop Atlanta. One is inside the airport.
Okay.
The first one, quite frankly, that's inside the airport. And then I had a couple in the malls. The point that I'm trying to make is that we've had the guys that come that used to sweep in the store. And right now I'm talking about mentoring. These guys that used to sweep, they started off at like 13, 14, 15. And now they're coming back to us as college graduates.
All right.
Family men, saying that they got their start and their ideas from what was happening inside our stores. And because we've always been community-oriented stores, mentoring is something that I just do. It just sort of happens. And I want to say that I think it was Dr. Lauren Jackson, when he said that some things happened to him, some negative things and positive things, but these young people, as they come along now, you can't give them a sandwich without meat in it. It has to be something that they can relate to.
Right.
You know, it has to be something they can relate to.
Yeah.
Because strange things happen to these young people as they're coming up, 17, 18, 19, when and that are changing their lives drastically, but they need someone to talk to just before that happens. And that's the positions that we're in. You guys are talking about getting them back to church. And we have customers that come in, pastors, preachers, elders, and they tend to not want to talk to them without to come to my church when I have my collar on, and then we can talk. Bring your family. You know, you should be able to talk to them wherever you are.
Right. I agree with that. And Andre, I don't want to cut you off,
but you
I
do,
see
but it's okay.
you really should be a preacher, because I know you can talk well as well. Love you, man. Let me get Dorothy. I want to hear from Dorothy, and then Stacey. I want to hear a little bit from you. Tell them where you are. Love you, Andre. Dorothy, unmute, please.
There you go.
There you go. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. We had two successful, I call them successful, vaccination clinics, and we
tell us where you are.
We're in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We're in the heart of the city.
Okay.
And our shop is Impressive Styles Beauty Salon and Elite Cut Barbershop.
All right.
We have one female barber on the beauty side, because there are so many women who wear their hair in men hairstyles.
All right.
But we, in the process of collecting information and talking to people, we found a lot of people had excuses. As I have high blood pressure, I can't get off my medication, this, that, and the other. So the health department has asked us to host a clinic in the salon or the barbershop, one or the other. We're in the process of working on it for HIV and AIDS, to check high blood pressure, the A1C, and
let's give her some steps.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
That's
addressing
wonderful.
Those underlying conditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so they'll give, their plan is to help us give clients information to let them know that it's okay for them to take the vaccination.
That's right.
All right.
That's
and
wonderful.
Then in March, before spring break, we plan to have another shot clinic, so people will come back from spring break safe.
Absolutely. That's so wonderful. We're so appreciative of you all and what you're
you.
doing in Pine Bluff, Dorothy. Stacy, you got just a little while, but we do want to
Yes.
hear your voice.
Tell us
I
where
just
you are.
want I just want to say keep hope alive, and I love you guys, and be safe.
Tell them where you are. Tell us where you are.
I'm in Philadelphia / Montgomery County, Wyncote, PA, at Rejuvenate Hair Salon and Fitness Center. So that's where I'm at, and we are being safe. And maybe one day I'll tell you about my mentoring program that just started. It's called TikTok. It's a tea club for young girls from ages 10 to 17.
Awesome.
We're teaching them how to go out to tea clubs.
That's wonderful.
You see how we're transforming. The barbershop is the place to
Barbershop
get back
is beautiful.
together. There you
Absolutely.
go.
Good. Thanks, Stacy. Love you so much. Good.
Omar, can you believe how time has flown?
Yeah, it has. Let me say this because we're going to go just a little bit over. I take a personal privilege to do that this time. Let me say this, Dr. Wheeler, Dr. Bland, Dr. Jackson. Thank you all. I mean,
Thank you.
Come on, audience.
We
Give
really
them some snaps,
appreciate it.
audience.
Yeah, thank you.
We
Thank
really
you so much.
appreciate you all. The authenticity, the just honesty resonates. It just permeates the entire space. And so we are so appreciative that you all chose to spend this time with us. We started out by saying, know thine own self. It's important that as we go through this Black History Month to realize that discovery of self is not relegated to a month.
That's right.
It is every day. It's every second of the day that you are discovering self. And that's so very critically important. And don't let nobody turn you around.
No.
Because we are going to keep on walking, keep on talking. Y'all remember that,
Yes, sir.
that song. But what we want to do is, Dr. T, thank you so much for your vision, for bringing us together, my brother. As always, you are special. We like to thank Dr. Ritter for always being here with us, giving us guidance in terms of the medical aspect of things, and even your personal perspective as you look at cultural differences and learn from those things, believing that we all are possessors of some truth. And as we bring our truths together, then and only then do we get closer to the truth. I want to just, and I know to ask the preacher to say something short is risque, but I would not, I would be remiss if I didn't say, if you all would just give just one last message for this moment to the people who are listening to us. Just one last message, just small, just got to be short.
Take us out.
Black lives matter because God created us to matter.
Be intentional about what you do and make sure you're headed in the right direction.
We're not divided, we're just disconnected. So let's keep the conversation going and flowing. Keep looking up.
And with that,
That was great.
let us continue to lift every voice and sing. And remember these two words. Remember that I love you with the perfect love. But more importantly, remember this. You got the power. Lift every voice and sing. And we'd like to thank Alvin Shea, who is the person who's singing that song. And thank you, Dr. Bland, for making it available to us. I saw it on Dr. Bland's station, and it blessed my heart.
He was
so
actually
we'll go out on this.
He was actually mentored by one of my sisters.
Absolutely wonderful.
As a baby, so he's done great work.
Tell him that we love him and we thank him for this wonderful work. Good.
Most certainly will.
Here we go.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the us march on till victory is won.
And
Be
with
safe.
that, we say we love you with the perfect love. But more importantly, remember this: you got the power. Be safe until next week.